Workers in New York City at an Amazon warehouse who voted to form a union are heavily criticizing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for trying to take credit for something she was not involved in. Cheering and celebrating, and everyone says, what do you have to say to her? And they're like, she had nothing to do with this. She didn't even show up. That's just the first scandal. The bigger scandal, in my opinion, while both are relevant, is that AOC's campaign and ex-chief of staff failed to disclose $1 million in expenses. Several years ago, it was reported that one of these intermediary companies associated with AOC had hired her boyfriend. He worked for about 2 months and then stopped working. And my understanding is it's been a while, but shortly after, he then moves to New York and moves in with AOC. It really did seem like AOC hired her boyfriend off the books by using a third-party company to obfuscate what they were doing so they could funnel money to him through the campaign illegally so that he could move to New York to be with her. It did not sound, to me at least, like there was legitimate work going on. Of course, the company that hired him said, no, he is a digital marketing strategist, and this employment was totally on the record, and it was totally above board, perhaps. But from this comes questions about how AOC was funneling dark money for her campaigns, and now we have one of the craziest stories we've seen in a long time, that the FEC is outright saying AOC and her AOC's former chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarty, was funneling $1 million through 2 political action committees, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats, which also involves Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kulinski. According to the New York Post, I believe Kyle Kulinski was involved with Justice Democrats. Despite the findings, the FEC voted to dismiss the complaint lodged against Ocasio-Cortez by the National Legal and Policy Center in March 2019. Yo, what's going on? Her campaign was funneling money. A 2-year investigation. What was happening with these funds? Where were they going? Why were they moving through these other companies? And why is AOC criticizing other people for using dark money? The craziest thing about this is that the FEC has dismissed the complaint. Let me read the story for you. We'll go through what's going on, and we'll take a look at some related information pertaining to her boyfriend and perhaps the outright and overt corruption of AOC. And then we'll wrap it all with a nice bow around how she's trying to take credit or be involved in what happened with the Amazon workers in Staten Island. The Examiner reports, the campaign of New York Rep. AOC and her former chief of staff were found to have failed to report roughly $1 million in expenses. The Federal Election Commission released filings on Thursday from a 2-year investigation surrounding allegations that Ocasio-Cortez's former chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarty, funneled $1 million through 2 political action committees, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats, according to the New York Post. Despite the findings, the FEC voted to dismiss a complaint lodged against AOC. Quote, the FEC has gone after a whole host of people whose violations are dwarfed by the scale of this scheme, Paul Kamenar, the attorney for the NLPC, said in a statement to the outlet. It appears to be not prosecutorial discretion, but prosecutorial favoritism. Now, I want to make sure, I'm going to be very, very nitpicky on this one. They say, released filings from a 2-year investigation surrounding allegations they funneled $1 million through 2 political action committees, Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats. They say, despite the findings. Okay, well, it outright says they were found to have failed roughly $1 million in expenses. I just want to make sure I'm being as specific as possible as it pertains to the total amount they're accused of failing to report. The NLPC's complaints claim that Chakrabarty funneled the money through 2 political action committees into 2 organizations, according to the outlet. The money transferred might have been in violation of the $5,000 limit for donations to federal candidates, according to the complaint. But because they went through these other companies, because they're effectively being funneled and going dark, we don't know. The investigation from the FEC found that the 2 PACs did not properly disclose the purpose of the disbursements to the shell companies, according to the outlet. In response to the findings, the NLPC filed a lawsuit against the Federal Election Integrity Organization for failing to provide a reason for dismissing its complaint, according to the outlet. Quote, It was highly irregular for the FEC to release its statement of reasons after the deadline for us to file suit, Tom Anderson, the director of the NLPC's Government Integrity Project, told the outlet. The FEC's findings come more than 30 days after the agency voted to dismiss the complaint against Ocasio-Cortez, according to the outlet. The Examiner reached out to AOC for a statement, but did not receive a response back. That is to say, the FEC came out and said, we're dismissing this complaint. Many people just assume it means tain't nothing there. Then they come out 30 days later and say, oh yeah, well, she did it. Yo, what? Something ain't right. Let me bring you back in time and talk about what's going on, because this is related. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign may have illegally paid her boyfriend. February 28th, 2019. The New York Post reported the Coolidge-Reagan Foundation alleged in the complaint that brand new Congress PAC paid Ocasio-Cortez's boyfriend, Riley Roberts, for marketing services after the PAC was hired by her campaign. Using the third-party political action committee to pay her boyfriend may have violated campaign finance laws, a lawyer for the Coolidge-Reagan Foundation told the Post. Quote, it's totally legal as a candidate to hire family members, people you know, to work for you, but they didn't do that. Instead of paying him directly, they paid him through an intermediary in order to obscure the fact that they paid him. The FEC should investigate and find out if that's the case. That's the allegation. But the PAC that hired Roberts told Fox News, who first reported the story, that all payments were legally sound. Roberts is a professional digital marketing and growth consultant who specializes in social media presence and subscriber engagement. A spokeswoman for Brand New Congress, PAC, told Fox. He was hired through a 2-month trial period beginning on August 3rd, 2017, and worked through the end of September 2017. Services to the Brand New Congress PAC consisted of advertising strategies for potential growth, developing metrics, and aiding in execution of strategy to increase brand awareness for the PAC as a whole. AOC, of course, did not respond. AOC, in my opinion, is crooked. She is corrupt. She is a liar and a manipulator. When she first won her primary, I gave her a round of applause. I said, good for her, challenging the establishment crony Democrats, pushing through the muck and the mire, and winning. I thought it was a good thing. AOC was an outsider. Then you quickly see how fast she changed, because what does she really want? AOC, in my opinion, is an evil person. It's an evil person. If you don't know about the things she's been accused of and the things she's actually done, such as lying to the public about what happened on January 6th, then perhaps you disagree with me. And you'll say, Tim, you're biased and you don't really hate AOC and you're evil and you're wrong. AOC used campaign money to get her boyfriend, at least it would seem, to move to New York to live with her. She should have disclosed it. She could have disclosed it. They could have done everything on the level. Instead, it took these investigative bodies to see what was happening and file a complaint. Her chief of staff failed to disclose $1 million in funding. How do you explain that? If you like AOC, you're okay with dark money in politics? I'm not. I don't like any of it. Any single one of them. I don't care who's doing it, Trump or otherwise. It's all bad. But let me just hit this one out of the park before I talk about how she's trying to steal the credit for what's happening with the Amazon workers. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells a story on Instagram about how on January 6th, she hears a knock on her door and she goes and hides in the bathroom because she's scared and she hears, where is she? Where is she? In her story, that's how she describes it. Thinking to herself, saying, I thought I was going to die. Turns out it was a police officer. It turns out this was a bomb scare. It turns out AOC fabricated the context around the story. Yes, a police officer did go to her door and knock. It was because there was a bomb scare. This was a full hour before the Capitol was breached. Did AOC know the Capitol was going to be breached? She must have. How else would she have known that rioters could have made it to her door? Oh, wait a minute. The reality is, she probably did not know anyone was going to breach the Capitol or storm in the building. She just fabricated the story after the fact to make it seem like the cop who knocked on her door was a rioter. Let me stress that point again. Go watch her Instagram video. Even conservatives missed this one. AOC claimed that there was a knock on her door and that someone said, where is she? And she was hiding in the bathroom, terrified that they had come for her and she was going to die, implying the rioters had broken in and found her office. The only problem is this story took place 1 hour before the Capitol was breached. Ocasio-Cortez fabricated the story. Don't believe me? Go look it up yourself. Don't want to? Then admit to yourself you don't care about what is true. You don't care about whether or not you're being ripped off. And you can go fillet the state for all I care. AOC is an evil person. Let's take a look at this story. Let's take a look at how she's trying to take credit for what hardworking people accomplished. She isn't part of our squad. Amazon union leader slams Ocasio-Cortez for abandoning them and says she doesn't deserve this moment after she celebrated Staten Island warehouse voting to unionize. If you support AOC after all of this, just be honest with yourself that she is a manipulator and a liar. Oh, by all means, you can recognize that she has a powerful voice. Good for you. I don't care. You can like everything she does. Just be honest about it. The Daily Mail reports as the, you know what, let's not even go the Daily Mail. Let's go with the tweets. AOC tweeted a bunch of flexing arms, quoting Amazon labor union. Current vote totals: 1,518 yes, 1,154 no, 364 votes in ALU's favor to wrap up today's count. Counting will resume at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Crystal Ball, who is a progressive, responds, here's the guy who organized the union drive talking about how you left them high and dry. These are your constituents, and you couldn't be bothered to show up until they're on the cusp of victory. AOC says, the warehouse isn't in my district, and maybe you should look at a map before claiming so. One scheduling conflict aside, we have requested oversight investigations into Amazon, met with Amazon workers in the Woodside warehouses, and more. Hope you do more due diligence next time. Dan Price, famous CEO who took a pay cut and raised the salary of all of his employees, says, I love and admire Crystal greatly, but I have scheduling conflicts constantly. Life happens. Things come up. I don't think it's realistic to ask one person to be at every event and solve every problem. Crystal responds, not one member of the squad showed up. They all ghosted Chris. And this wasn't just another event. It was the most substantial worker-led organizing effort at one of the most powerful companies in the world. They all had excuses for all the many months of this organizing drive. And AOC says, so what exactly is the insinuation here? That we are secretly in the tank for Amazon? That we are sellouts despite leading congressional investigations into Amazon? Taking huge blowback to call out the scam HQ2 deal? Meeting with workers in our district warehouses? It's reaching. Ocasio-Cortez tanked, or helped tank, a deal that would have brought massive jobs to New York. I think it cost Amazon something like $3 billion a year for 10 years, some ridiculous number. And when everyone got really mad at AOC, she said, well, it's not even in my district. Yet she was down in the financial district leading protests. She is a liar. She is duplicitous. What's the accusation here? That you're sellouts? It's that you will say whatever you need to say to get clout and political power. Crystal responded, you'll have to say for yourself why you didn't even tweet out your support. I have no way to know. You going to reply to shut down Amazon? I'd say his views matter a lot more than mine. That's right. Shut down Amazon. The dude who actually led the charge. Let me take a look. Let's pull up some of his tweets. Status coup news. Hell no, she don't deserve this moment. Shut down Amazon responds to whether he has a message for AOC, who workers told status coup flaked on them and wouldn't show support for their union drive. Amazon labor union organizer Christian Smalls speaks to the media as ALU members celebrate official victory after hearing results regarding the vote to unionize outside the NLRB offices in Brooklyn, New York, U.S., April 1st. Where was AOC when they were asking for her help? When she ghosted them? Okay, fine. She doesn't have to be at these meetings? Fine. Why is it that there are so many circumstances where AOC is shown to be manipulative or outright lying and people just take her back? Yet when this dude leads the charge and wins, She pops up celebrating, and he's like, nah. Why are people defending AOC over the dude who actually got something done? Smalls claimed he went down to D.C. and personally invited squad members Cori Bush, AOC, and Mondaire Jones to join in his effort to unionize, but none showed up. Me personally, I wouldn't join a union. But if these people want to vote for it, I got no issue. By all means, do your thing. My attitude is very much more civil libertarian. I work for a company and people start saying, yo, we want to unionize. I say, I don't want to be involved in that. I really don't. I had a friend. I had left a company. I got word that the company was voting to unionize. And I said to my friend, you need to go to your boss and tell them you want nothing to do with this. You do not want to be a part of a union. And she was like, why would I do that? We're going to get more money. And I said, your company operates off of investment. You are not generating revenue. They're not going to negotiate with you to give you more money when you cost them money and make them none. If you want to keep your job or keep some connection to what's going with this industry, you need to say, I don't want to be involved in this. And she didn't want to do that. And what happened? The company laid hundreds of people off because the company didn't make money. It's insane to me that people think you can be part of an investment, that someone could be like, we're going to invest in your job that makes no money. Then you would be like, okay, we're going to form a union. My attitude is on unions is by all means, absolutely everybody should have the opportunity, should discuss it, decide what makes sense for them. My only response is just keep in mind, if your company does not make money, they will not keep you on. Now, as for Amazon be making some money. By all means, have your vote. I think it's fascinating. There's a lot of pros and cons with unions. Me personally, I don't want to be in one, but I certainly am not stupid enough to ignore the fact that these people are now going to benefit to a great degree. But where is the support for the guy who actually did the work? The guy who actually did the work, he's who should be representing progressives in Congress, not AOC, not these these social media personalities, influencers, a dude who actually got something done. I got tremendous respect for people who do the work. And this guy did the work, and he deserves a shout out because he won, he pushed, he got it. Now that is power. When AOC first won in her district in the primary, that's how I felt. She put in the work, she pushed back, and she won. But then you can see how bad things really got. We'll see what happens with this guy. Now, he's just representing a labor union at an Amazon warehouse. I don't like Amazon. I think they're a massive multinational corporation that is exploiting the system. They've been greatly benefited by the pandemic. I think Jeff Bezos, for the most part, is kind of a bad guy. Buying the Washington Post and letting the Washington Post be just overtly evil. So you know what? Sock it to him. Bring the fight. Amazon workers should get paid more. I do use Amazon periodically because it is just a whole lot easier. And that's the reality. But it's scary. We're seeing this convenience, but we're also seeing the dangers and the exploitation. I don't know if the union is going to be the right thing. They voted for it. They better continue to vote, and they have to remain. They got to stay tough to make sure corruption doesn't take over their union. And that's always the biggest fear I've had with unions. I got no problem if somebody wants to form a union. I don't want to be in one. I don't care if anybody else wants to have one. I'll run the company. You guys do your thing. Be it anybody here, by all means, do your thing with my blessing. Just, that's not for me. I don't care what people want to vote for. When it comes to AOC, what frustrates me is at a certain point, can't you just recognize that you're being ripped off? That's the problem in this country. People don't care. I can sit back and tell you these things about AOC. I can show you the story about what she was doing, and they'll just, oh, well, that was really this, or that's a smear, or they're lying. It was dismissed. That proves she did nothing wrong. Donald Trump has done a lot of bad things. He's a nasty guy. But bad things are not necessarily bad policy. I think Donald Trump, policy-wise, was doing a lot of good for this country. I think, bad things are like, his demeanor, the missile strike in Syria, commando raids in Yemen, drone strikes in the Middle East. These are bad things. But he did a lot of really good things. The challenge is recognizing what good and bad you're willing to accept. Donald Trump has done some bad things. The State Department website, I think it was in the UK or it might have been in Scotland, was advertising a Trump resort or something like that. I'm not a fan of that. Trump was trying to use his properties with like G7 meetings, and he was having people in the Air Force stay at his properties. I'm not a fan of that. I think those are bad things. I have no problem calling those things out every single time, and I have. What I take issue with is the people who won't call out AOC's bad things. Does AOC do good? No. A little bit. For progressives, across the board, overwhelmingly bad stuff. Yet people keep backing her up. Lies, cheats, and steals. She is just crooked as they come since the beginning. You know why? I'll tell you the difference between AOC and Trump. They're both social media blowhards. They're both culture warriors. They both represent their populist factions. But AOC was a nobody. And I actually respect that. She was a bartender, and she fought her way, and she won, and she got in Congress, and she made millions of followers. Good for her. I respect that she came from humble upbringings, from a humble position. But then she's scared. She's scared of losing what little she's finally grasped onto. Go back to being a bartender? How embarrassing would that be? I've talked about this. After Occupy Wall Street, I get all this attention. I'm in magazines, and I'm like, what do I do now? If I don't do something big, it'll be like, man, whatever happened to that guy? Talk about a failed opportunity. Well, I fought and I clawed and I made sure to keep working and do the work. When I left Fusion, I thought the same thing. I'm like, that's it. I'm out of the industry in New York. I'm not going to go back to these corrupt companies. What do I do? Is that it? Is that dude who was, they called me an expendable, one of the Expendables hires for Fusion, like the movie. They hired all these top personalities and talents. Now I'm out. What do I do? Could this be it? It's a scary feeling thinking you don't know where you're going. But for me, I thought I'll just keep doing my thing. I'll go independent and I'll fight for myself. AOC just bent the knee and said, tell me what to do. I can't lose this. Donald Trump said, I already have it all. I don't care. Trump's not worried about losing anything. He's an old man. He's lived the life. That's the difference. With AOC, the corruption is the rule, not the exception. With Trump, it's the exception, not the rule, meaning they both have, to varying degrees, bad in them and corruption. But AOC is just so bad. Can't stand her. And now the FEC says, yeah, she did these things, but we're not going to do anything about it. That's corruption, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.